No, so hello, welcome back everybody. My name is Mary Scully and I'm joined today by Mary Shalley, and we welcome you back to our very last webinar in this series where we look at a second level student revision course for those young people out there about to undertake their Leaving Cert exam. We're in our last webinar today, which is an extension of the exam techniques Mary discussed there in webinar 5. So again, any questions that come out of this, or if you want any expansion or anything on it, do let us know. You can get in touch with us at info@dyslexia.ie and we'd be more than happy to help. So I'll hand over to you, Mary, to start there. Thanks, Mel.
Okay, so thank you very much for joining us again for our last webinar, and hopefully you found them useful to date. And this is just reinforcing what we talked about in the previous webinar about the importance of exam techniques. And exam techniques, as I said earlier, are the most important thing that you need to learn. In all of your revision, you need to learn how to do the exam, because that is the thing that makes the difference between you doing well or not doing so well. Not the amount of the revision you do. Yes, the revision is critical, but the exam techniques are nearly more important, because this is where young people really let themselves down, because they haven't practiced the examination. And then when it comes to the examination, they're not quite sure of what to expect. So we're just going to reinforce some of the information I gave you in the last webinar, again, with the importance of examination techniques.
Great.
Okay, so to get an A grade, as they talk about, it's all in points, but basically to get this idea of doing really well in the examination, you need to answer the question that's asked. And you think, well, that's basic. Of course I know that as a student. But you would be surprised how many students do not answer the question that's asked. They answer the question they'd like to have seen, and they give all the information about something that they've liked or something they've learned because they've learned it. And you don't do well because you haven't answered the question that's been asked. Anything you say, you need to give some theory or some backup information to support that particular point. Don't just make statements without anything to back them up, particularly in essay questions. Review it. Look at the evidence. What evidence have they given you in the examination, or what evidence have you learned? Maybe if you're in a literacy paper, and they're asking a question about a character. How does this person show danger? And you might be able to see the almost a grimace in their face, or they might have worn red or something like that, which is a colour to support danger. What evidence do you have to support what you're saying? Analyze, if you have the opportunity to, positives and negatives or something, the pros and cons of something. Discuss short and the long run, and things that would impact in the immediate term and things that would impact in the longer term. And examine the importance of any point you're making. What is the point of me saying this? What am I trying to say here? How is that actually answering this question? So if you're writing something down, you need to be thinking, what is the point of what I'm writing down? Is it actually answering the question that's been asked?
Okay. That's a really good little reminder there as well, that the A grade. So you're going to answer, you're going to review, and all of those little things on that previous slide. It was really good to just even remember those things. Okay, have I done that? Okay, yes, I have. So now I'm going to move on to the next question. It's really good little reminder for us. Yeah.
And if you have dyslexia, or if any young person, particularly any child with dyslexia, do not go into your examination without coloured pencils, markers, pencils, highlighters, whatever. You must have a range of colours, and every one of them must have a particular point. So you have the consistency of approach. So you might decide you're going to underline every piece of data that's given in blue. You decide for yourself, whichever you feel as if, there. You're going to underline the command words in yellow. So all your command words are in yellow. Whatever you think is the colour you want to use. It doesn't matter what colour you use, as long as you're consistent. For a different colour for the number of marks. So green could be the number of marks. Any units is in a question. You could use a red pencil, whatever. I haven't mentioned that colour. But you know what I mean? That sense of, make sure you decide before you go in, and when you're practicing your examinations, that you use the colour and you're consistent with colour. So your units are going to be in red. So you always make sure you use a red pen for units. So make sure you use colour. That will really help you to focus your attention in the examination and to remember what to look for. So if you have 5 things and you have 5 colours, then you make sure your 5 colours are used in your question.
And it's just engaging that sense of sight and that sense of, okay, when I see this, I'm going to process, my brain is going to process that in this way. And that's so important for all students, but especially those with dyslexia, for sure. Yeah, it's a good one, Mary. Yeah.
And answer the question that's asked. Read the question carefully. What are they asking me to do here? What do I need to do? Answer each part of the question. Lots and lots of students miss out a part of the question, and then they are not going to get those marks, and they haven't even realised they've missed it out. So check the answer each part of the question. Tick it off in your sheet. I've done that one there. Tick that one off, or put a line through it, or whatever you want. But that bit's done. Writing your answer books is directed. Follow the instructions. Note how the marks often relate to the question. Give 3 reasons why. You have 3 marks. Name 4 and describe 8 marks. So there's 4 things you need to name. So you're getting a mark there for naming them, and you're getting a mark there for describing them. So that's your 8 marks. Do not write a page when there's only 3 marks available. You will not get any more than 3 marks. That's the limit that an examiner can give you. He cannot give you any more than 3 marks if there's only 3 marks there. So you need to be careful of that. You don't waste time in your exam writing a full page for 3 marks. You're not going to get any additional marks. So be careful of that there. And that's why a lot of people run out of time, not because the examination doesn't have enough time to do it, because they spend time doing things that are not necessary.
And I guess that comes back to a point you made in our last webinar, Mary, about the examiner wants to give you positive marks. They don't want to mark you down. They want everybody to pass. So they really want to give you the marks. And we also said the question sometimes, or all the time, will give you the answer. It tells you what way to answer. So if it asks for 3, give the 3. If it asks for 4 and describe, just give the 4 and describe. So it really does, it tells us, what to do. So as you said, don't go on and exaggerate or, write your full page when you've got other questions to do. Just answer it and move on.
Yeah, and that's it. And plan what you need to say. You need to plan your answers, and this is part of your revision. So you're planning your answers at this stage, but don't be so structured in your plans that they won't be able to answer different questions. The lots of questions can be phrased differently. So if you're too restricted in your plan, so you need to be thinking of things like mind maps, list ideas, pictograms. They're the best way to plan answers, not plan in preparation of full answers. Have the information that you need that you can actually use for any question that's asked on that topic. Refer back to your plan. Make sure you've mentioned the things in your plan that are relevant to that question. There are things in your plan that are not relevant. You don't get any extra marks for putting them in. Put in your plan in unless the exam says do not attach any plans or additional materials or whatever, but if you can put your plan in, put it on the first page of your examination booklet. You never know, the examiner might go back and look at it and you might get a few extra marks. You just don't know. It's going to do no harm. Don't write everything you know about a subject, and this is where a lot of students fall down. They write everything they know. So they ask you a question about glaciation and geography. I'm not even sure if that's on the syllabus. And you write everything you know about glaciation. That's a total waste of your time because you haven't answered the question. The examiner will read through it and they'll try to find marks. But that is, really a lot of time you've wasted because you maybe haven't hit on the key points. So be very careful of that there. Keep rereading the question. Keep going back to the question. Am I still on task? Sometimes with dyslexia, you can go off on a tangent and you can write lots and lots of information that things that are not relevant. That's taking up time that you don't have to waste. So make sure you keep rereading the question. Every time you come back to a paragraph, end of a paragraph, go up, reread the question again. It only takes a couple of seconds, but it keeps you on task and saves you wasting a lot of other time. And then when you've finished your answers, proofread your work with the question in mind. Did I answer what was asked? So look at your keywords. Did I explain? Did I describe? Did I compare? Did I contrast? And look at the number of marks. Is what I've written, if there's 30 marks or 40 marks, have I written enough to make those points that's going to get me that number of marks? So always plan your answer and proofread. We don't like to proofread because we don't want to see what we don't know. We don't want to see where we made mistakes. This is about giving you the opportunity to see, have I answered the question that they have asked me? Because if you haven't, then you're not going to get the marks for it. So when you get your exam, think of the bug. First thing you do, box the command word, put a box around it. This highlights what type of answer the examiner is looking for. So what is my command word? What am I being asked to do? Am I being asked to state something? Am I being asked to explain something? And then underline the keywords. And this allows you to jog your own memory. What do I need to remember here? And then glance over the question again to gain any more information to find out what am I being asked to do here. And then remember, in geography and other subjects as well, if you have dyslexia, sometimes you miss the ending of words. And in an examination, this can make a massive difference. So for example, in geography, a developing country could be misread as developed. Underline anything tricky. As an individual, if you know that you do that sometimes, then you make sure when you're in the examination that you actually look at the endings of words. Because if you misread developing and you as developed and you write, say, all about Ireland as a developed country, you're not going to get any marks because you haven't answered the question. So be really careful of that. Look out for those things, and look out for those things when you're actually doing your practice papers long before your examination. But just be mindful, if that's something that you fall down on, you need to make sure that you don't make that mistake in the examination.
Yeah, this one is a good one because it's just reinforcing what we've discussed in this webinar and the last one as well about turning that paper into that question on that paper into a format that you are comfortable with. So if that's color, or if that's circles or squares or underlines or whatever it may be, you have to turn it into work for you. Make the paper work for you. Make the question work for you. For me, it's circles. I like to circle and I like to highlight. I like to circle what the amount of the question is, and then I know, okay, this one is worth 20 points or 30 points or whatever, and I know, okay, that's where my timing is, and then I move on to my next one, my lower down ones or whatever. But no, that's a really good example there, Mary, for sure.
Just always be mindful. But if you know yourself, and this is back to understanding yourself, you know where you'll make mistakes.
Yeah.
Because you'll make them in your practice papers.
Yeah.
So you need to make sure that I know this is a mistake that I could make. So I need to make sure that I look for this in the paper and make sure I don't. There might not be anything in that paper that could be as significant as that. You just need to make sure that it's not there that could have an impact. Okay. Short answer questions. There'll be lots of short answer questions. These are usually factual, descriptive, and they're usually details of procedure, naming an item, putting labels in a diagram or whatever. There's on there, we one for water, carbon dioxide going in. You might be asked to label those diagrams very simply, like that one there. Make sure you know what to do. And you need to understand these are short answer questions. So if it asks you to label, it usually means 1 or 2 words. It's not a big, long sentence. So it could be just where carbon dioxide goes in and oxygen comes out. 1 or 2 words is all that's required there. Take note of the mark system. If there's 1 mark, it really is usually requiring one piece of information. Answer all parts of the question. Sometimes in short answer questions, they ask you to label, and you might only label 4 parts, and there could be a wee box up in the far corner that you might not see, that maybe could be for the title or whatever for label. Make sure that you label all parts of a diagram. Make sure you answer all parts of the question, basically. So look for those wee things that you might miss. And if it's broken into sections, make it clear to which section you're dealing with. Help the examiner mark your paper. So if it's question 1, section 1, part B, put 1 part B and underline it. And that also keeps you focused for which part of the question you need to go back up and check and make sure you've answered all of the questions. So write down, if it's not written on the paper, write down question 1, part B, or whatever part you're answering. Most of the papers will actually have it written for you, but if it's not there, make sure that you actually do that just to ensure that you answer all of the questions. And don't waste valuable time by writing lots and lots of information when it's not required. These are short answer questions, usually 2, 3 marks, and so very often sometimes 1 mark, a definition or something like that there. Okay. Essay questions. These are probably the most difficult questions on the paper because they're very, very long questions. But it's like everything. It can all be broken down into short, manageable tasks. They're usually worth a large percentage of the marks, so you need to follow the instructions really, really clearly and be sure that you've followed all of the instructions. Look out for the keywords and direction words. These are your command words again. They all follow the usual essay format. Doesn't matter how long it is. You have an introduction, you have a main body, and a conclusion. All essays have that format. So make sure, and some of you might actually been able to have learned the introduction for some of your English essays as well.
That was exactly what I was going to say. We can 100% practice our essays ahead of the actual exam. Even though we don't know what topic it's going to come up on the actual exam, we can practice the format, the introduction, the main body, the conclusion. And even if you just do that a few times ahead of the actual exam, you'll be in a good place to then, okay, this is the kind of information or the kind of phrases I need to get in there, and then build it around the actual topic that you're tested on, and we can 100% practice those ahead of the day. Yeah.
And it's the key phrases, as Mary has said, that are really, really important. So your introduction, you're not learning a whole introduction by rote. You're learning maybe 5 key phrases.
Yeah.
It should be an introduction, because those are the same for all essays.
Yeah.
There will be 5 key phrases that will probably be in a conclusion as well. So learn those 5 key phrases and make sure you put them in, and then you add the bit that is relevant to the particular question. You know, and that's good practice well before the exam as well. So think of this for quote, for essays. You also remember your quotes anyway. I think if you think of the question, look for direction, discuss, describe, explain, underline the U, words that help focus on ideas to develop your answers. The O for organize, write the facts and write your answer. Time, decide how much you're going to spend on answering each item, and evaluate the content and organization of what you wrote. And this is where very often in exams, we don't evaluate the content and organization of what you wrote. You think, I haven't enough time to do it, let's move on to the next one. But those couple of minutes that you take looking at what you've written can make a significant difference, because you can add bits and pieces in.
Exactly. Yeah.
And just from the point of view of you're adding something into an exam, so you've written an essay, just from the point of view of easiness of reading, don't try and cram it in above the lines. Just put a number, put a circle around it or an asterisk, and go to the bottom of the page and put the asterisk at the bottom of the page and write clearly what you want to add in. And then the examiner will know then, if you see number 1 or please see below or something like that, that he knows. Or even just do, sometimes what you find is that even just do a big line right down to the bottom bit and put it in underneath. Do not try to cram it in above a sentence you've already written, because you won't be able to read it and there'll be no room and it'll just look really messy. But make a point there somewhere, an asterisk, a number, or a big arrow, line with an arrow, and then take your paragraph and add your additional paragraph. The examiner will read it then and know what you're trying to say. It just looks neater and it's just a bit easier to understand. Okay. You need to learn quotes.
Yeah.
You will need to learn them, and you need to make sure before you go into the exam, what do I need to know for this exam? Some examinations will give you some quotes. Some examinations you might be allowed to take the book in with you or whatever. You need to find out what you need for your exams particularly. But you need to at least 10 quotes from 3 novels or plays, 45 quotes from each poem. Write them out in cue cards, post-it notes, have them all over the house so you're really, really familiar with them. Listen to them, reread them over and over again. 15 minutes per night just learning your quotes is better than 1 hour once a week. This constant repetition for those quotes. You need to learn them. You need to know which ones are important, and you need to learn quotes that can be used in different scenarios to help different points. Your teacher will have given you good quotes, so learn the ones that she probably has given you good guidance there as well. And read, cover, write. Back to the things that you did for learning things for your spelling test when you were in primary school. Read, cover, write over and over again. Make sure you know them, and if you're in the exam, you only remember part of the quote, that's fine. Put it down. Leave a bit of space. It might come back to you. If it doesn't matter that much, because you've probably got it in a context and they've probably got enough there maybe to do okay with it. So don't be worrying about perfection. Don't let perfection put you off doing well. Because sometimes we're too hard on ourselves and think, I don't remember all of that quote. Put down what you know. You might there might be enough there to have answered the question well enough. Okay. And then I talked about the structure of essays. All essays have the same structure. An introductory sentence that contains your main point, follow with sentences that support your point, and end your answer with a sentence that states your conclusion. That's 1 paragraph answer. And then in a big long essay, it's the exact same thing again. There's multiple paragraph answer. An introductory paragraph, follow with an additional paragraph, and end with a paragraph in which you state your conclusion. So you might have 4 or 5 paragraphs in an essay. Every one of them will have the same format. So always think about this when I'm doing an answer for an essay and a question. No matter how long the essay is, all you're thinking about is 1 paragraph at a time. Do you have an introductory sentence? Do you have a sentence to support what I'm trying to say? And do you have a sentence in that paragraph that states my conclusion? Paragraph done, move on to the next one. Don't be put off by thinking I have to write pages and pages. You're writing 1 paragraph at a time, and that's all you're writing.
And that's where I'd bring in my, sorry to interrupt, Mary, that's where I'd bring in my mind map, and you have paper in the exam to have your workspace, your draft space, for want of a better expression. You bring in your mind map, what's going to be in paragraph 1, paragraph 2, 3, 4, 5 maybe, and then you have it all listed, and when it comes time to to write it out, then you have it there, and you can show the examiner as well how you were thinking ahead of actually getting it on paper. So it's, as you said, it's not going to change. All essays are the exact same. It's just how we develop it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you make sure those we practice paragraphs of ideas there.
Mm-hmm.
But also don't, when essays are the time that you need to expand a wee bit.
Yeah.
We talked about short answer questions, that way you just give the point. In an essay, you're expected to expand.
Yeah.
So don't make comments without explanation, like smoking kills. Fair enough. But you just write that down. You're not going to really develop an answer. But if you write something, smoking kills, a recent World Health Organization study, 2020, has shown that on average, smokers are more likely to die from lung cancer or heart disease than non-smokers.
Yeah.
That's all where you might not remember. It's a recent World Health study. You might not know, but you could say clearly the Irish government has shown that on average, smokers are more likely to die from lung cancer or heart disease than non-smokers. That's expanding that sentence out. And you knew that. You knew that the media would say, or the government would say, if you don't have dates or you don't have quotes, it doesn't matter. You still should be able to say a wee bit more than smoking kills. There's a lot of media attention, or the media campaign from the Irish health organizations or whatever. Just expand it out from something you know. Don't just make statements and leave and put a full stop.
Exactly.
You'll get an extra mark or 2 marks from being able to say a wee bit more about it, from something you know already, because you know that there's lots of research out there. You might not know where it's come from, but you can make a good guess from the health authorities, from the government or something. You don't always have to have the studies. So expand out, don't make comments without some form of an explanation. And even if you don't know anything, smoking kills, you can say that a lot of people have, evidence has shown a lot of people die from lung cancer as a result of smoking. Or on cigarette packets, there's warnings. The government have put health warnings in cigarette packets. Get this sense that you can say a bit more than just a full stop. So you don't always need research. You can just expand it out a wee bit. So you're letting the examiner know, I know something about this topic here. Okay. Time in exams. This is where lots and lots of people fall down. And practice time management and question planning. We've talked about that there. Allocate time to think and prepare. We always say, right, we've got 15 minutes for this section of the exam, and you start writing straight away. Because you think, I have so little time, I need to get this done. Take a couple of minutes at the beginning to find out, what am I trying to do here? Make a plan. It's really, really beneficial and time well spent. Decide the order of what you want to do. Some students like to do the paper exactly. I always like to do the paper one after the other. I just couldn't cope with that because I felt as if I hadn't done it properly. But other students really, really do really well by thinking, right, I know all about this topic. I want to get it down on paper here while it's fresh in my mind. Be careful if you're doing that there. If you're answering your best questions first, it's a great strategy and it works really well, that you don't miss something out. That's sometimes what happens is you answer the best questions and then you forget where you are in the paper. Be careful of that there, but it can help boost your confidence. Highlight your command words again, your key terms. Make a few notes for each question. And science, technology, engineering, maths, the STEM subjects, make sure you show you're working. If you're doing a maths question or a physics question, you'll get marks for your working. There might be 8 marks for that question. There might only be 1 mark for the answer. So if you just write down the answer and you've done your work in some scrappy piece of paper and the examiner can't find it, then you only get 1 mark. And equally, if you've written down the wrong answer, you might get no marks. Whereas if you show you're working and you get the wrong answer, you might still get 5 marks out of it. Always show you're working and make it as clear as you possibly can where it is. And lots of results have shown that your percentage of personal best, increases the length of time you're working. If you're doing a long essay, it gets better as you go on. But then see, when it hits this point, it drops right down to the floor, because that's when you're starting then to just repeat things and drag the question out. So if you're spending too long on a question, or you're not confident, you think, I'm not answering information here concisely, I'm just waffling here, I'm moving on, I'm just rambling and information, stop, leave a couple of pages and come back to it. Okay. Most common mistakes: not reading the question properly, answering a question you would like to have seen that is not actually there, not finishing the paper, your timing's off, ignoring the marking scheme, writing too much, particularly for 2 or 3 mark questions. Repetition. And when you start to repeat in an answer, you're struggling. You're not answering your question. Stop at that point and go on and come back to it again, because you're actually not, you're just writing things down for the sake of it. Won't get you any extra marks. Missing part of the question, I already mentioned that is one of the things where more students don't do well, and they don't know why they didn't do well in the exam. They can't understand because they worked really hard, and the results come in, they think, what happened there? Why did I not do well? Because they've missed part of a question. So if there's 50 marks and you only describe, you only get 25 marks. If you don't explain, you've lost those other 25 marks.
Yeah.
Okay. Write down the time you must move on to the next question and stick to that rigidly. You can always come back to it. You need time to do the other questions. Read the questions slowly and deliberately. Take that time. If you have 3 hours in a paper and you have to spend 15, 20 minutes in that whole paper reading and rereading questions, so be it. That's really important. Highlight the key points. Ensure you've really taken in what each question says, as it's easy to misread questions or miss parts of them in the exam. You have lots of time. Take the time.
Especially as a dyslexic person, isn't it, that you can very much so misinterpret a question, or, like we said earlier on, forget a small detail in the question. Yeah.
Always take the time to read. It's really important. And use your colour pencils. Check the back of the paper, see if any further questions. I've seen exams coming in where children just didn't, or children, young adults, just didn't turn the back of the paper over, and there was a question they just missed completely. Or also watch sometimes in examinations that sometimes the papers are not stuck together. I know these sound very simplistic things, but these are the type of things that can happen. Like you turn over 2 pages and you haven't realised you've turned over 2 pages. So take the time to check the paper, check the back of the pages, make sure that you haven't missed anything. Write the answers to your questions you've selected, and avoid this regurgitating answers you've learned. Regurgitating answers for questions are not a good exam strategy, because you're not, very rarely are you ever going to get the exact question that you've learned. So have them in points, have the key points, the introductions and things like that for essays learned, but don't learn essays off by heart. You'll only get marks in material that answers the question. So if you give extra information, there's no extra marks. It's just giving time. Structure your answers. Essays should have a clear line of reasoning, as well as a structured argument, an introduction and a conclusion. So many students do not conclude their essays. They are essay questions. They need an introduction and a conclusion. And very often you get a full stop at the end of the page and you turn over as an examiner and you're looking for the bit to summarise their ideas, the conclusion, and it's not there. So you're going to lose marks for that. So make sure you have a conclusion. And as Mary had said earlier, having those key points already practiced for your conclusion, that you know those key phrases off by heart. If you go blank, and this, people say, oh, I went blank in the exam. This actually very rarely happens. It really doesn't. If it doesn't, brainstorm your words and ideas onto the back page. You just need to take time and refocus. The information is there. You've practiced getting back out again. So this is just another practice of the same thing. Just write your ideas onto a rough page and that hopefully will stimulate your ideas. But stop. If you get stuck in a question, stop, leave 3 or 4 pages and go back to it again. Don't just sit for ages trying to panic in that question, because that'll stress you and then you think you can't do the rest of it. Find a point of calm, breathe slowly, sit down, take a few seconds, calm yourself down, check through your answers at the end. Is there anything else I can put into this here? And you'll find parts that you've written that don't make any sense. Fix them up a wee bit and add these in at the bottom of the pages. I was saying, don't try to cram information in the middle of a piece of work. Put an arrow down or an asterisk or something so the examiner can find what you're trying to add on. Have you felt like this yet? Of course you have. And you will feel like this closer and closer to the exam. What's the point? I can't do this. I'm not going to get there. You will get there. So that you will feel like that. That's part of the revision process. It is only a very, very short period of your life and you will come through it. Okay. A little anxiety before a test improves your concentration and alertness. But too much will lower your test score. Test anxiety is not genetic. It's something you've learned to do and it can be unlearned. You've ready for your exam, you already done this exam, this whole sense of people hyping you up, and this whole idea, so the test anxiety can be unlearned. You've spent a lot of time learning and practicing how to be anxious about tests. You spent hours and hours worrying about tests, thinking about this test and how this is going to impact. It's only an exam.
Mm-hmm.
It's only a small part. You're still the same person the day you did before the exam as you are that evening after you've done the exam. It doesn't change who you are. It's only an exam. But how can you change this sense of test anxiety? You need to be more thinking about yourself. And what you think will happen is a dramatic effect on how you behave. So what if you eliminate the negative messages and
Mm-hmm.
images and think to yourself, what happens if I don't do well in this test? Take them away completely and replace them with more realistically positive thoughts and images. I may not answer all the questions, but I can start with the ones I know and move to the harder ones and do the best I can. This is what you have to think about this examination. Expecting yourself to get all the questions correct is not a good strategy. It's not going to happen. You're not going to get 100% in this exam. So why put yourself under that pressure, expecting yourself to be able to do that? It's like I may get something wrong, but that will not deter you from doing your best.
Mm-hmm.
All this exam is a key to the door. You just need to get the points that you need to move into the next stage of your life. That's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's nothing more.
Mm-hmm. And I think as well, one of the things you'd said earlier on in one of the earlier webinars, or even maybe in the one before this, was that the examiner wants you to succeed. Okay, you're not coming at this exam out of the blue. You've had the last 2 school years of learning about this topic, so you're not walking in blind. You've had this time to revise. You know your subject and you know it well. You've revised for it. You've looked at the exam papers. So be confident, walk tall. And I think you said in our very first webinar, Mary, about your mindset and having it. There was a quote you said about, was it Henry Ford, where I can do this and I will achieve this. And once you believe that, you can do it and you will achieve it. And it's just about owning it, knowing it, and really believing in yourself. You can do it, like, absolutely. These are
You
all
wouldn't,
really good points for you to make. Yeah.
and you wouldn't be doing this exam only somebody's decided that you're
Yeah.
capable for it.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. There's
Mm.
no way that you would put in for a
Yeah.
higher English paper or a higher physics paper or a lower ordinary physics paper if you weren't capable for it.
Mm-hmm.
The teacher would have made that decision 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And they've decided, yes, this young person here,
Mm-hmm.
using it, is capable of doing this exam.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to be believing yourself.
Yeah.
And this anxiety that you report is when you haven't practiced.
Mm-hmm.
It's like doing your driving test
Yeah.
without ever getting into a car. You haven't practiced. So that's when your anxiety level will be higher. So you need to
Exactly.
spend the next few weeks practicing.
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll start to get this idea of being confident in
Yeah.
being able to answer the questions, because
Mm-hmm.
the type of questions don't change.
No.
The words might change slightly in them, but the type of questions don't change.
Mm-hmm.
And as you practice, look for things of information that's missing or is weak for you.
Mm-hmm.
You'll look for those things that you struggle with and try and make sure that you try to address them before your examination.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and this idea of optimum performance, visualize before you write anything down. Close your eyes and visualize your answers. Think of you in the room where you revise, your books and your notes, the conversation you have with your parents. And if you do start to panic, sit down, close your eyes and take control.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine yourself in an imaginary safe place. Hold the back of your neck with one hand and massage your forehead with the other. Take a few seconds to do that. If whatever you want to do, refocus yourself, calm yourself down.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you start to fall behind with your time plan, go into note form, leave some space to come back to it.
Yeah.
Don't leave big empty spaces, but put notes in. You might get enough marks there to help you.
There's a solution for every problem, isn't there? There is a solution for every problem, and no problem is massive. Like, we'll get through it all. And just imagine yourself. What I like to do when I'm coming up to an exam time is imagine myself afterwards when I get my result, and just how proud I will feel about whatever that result may be, and knowing that I'll have learned a lot along the way to get there, whether it's an A or a D or whatever. It doesn't even matter. It's just about getting it, isn't it? Yeah, it's a really nice feeling.
And you have to be smart. So be
Yeah.
specific. Set actual topics, revise things one at a time. Measurable, split your revision into short 20-minute sessions, set a time scale and reward yourself. Look after yourself during the revision time. This is not the time to go on a diet. This is not the time to get a fitness regime or anything like that. This is the time to get through this exam. And this is your focus. Actually have fun doing your revision. Do different things, make silly songs, go for walks, all of these things. Do whatever you can. Have some multi-sensory approaches to your learning. Realistic. There's no point setting goals that you won't follow. Balance your revision with relaxing. There's no point putting a 15-hour timetable together for now to the exam. That's not going to happen. Study takes time. Give yourself enough to do what you need to do. And that's when you look at the actual syllabus and you tick off things. That gives you an idea. Do I have enough time to do what I need to do? Okay. And if you're still trying, you're coping. So remember, you're not alone. There are thousands of students going through the same thing. They'll give you support. There's lots, your parents, your any significant adult in your life, your siblings have all been through it, and they'll help you support as well. Exams are not the be all and end all of everything. They don't define who you are. If you have to take the scenic route, which is always usually a nicer route, to get where you want to go, so be it. If you don't get the points this year, it's not that there's no other routes or paths open to you. There's lots and lots of routes and paths open to you. And sometimes you've heard so many young people would say, I didn't get the points and I had to go X, Y, and Z. And their second choice actually turned out to be the best choice for them. So sometimes don't worry about it. Whatever will be, will be.
Exactly, yeah.
Look after yourself, drink plenty of water, don't drink too much coffee and stuff like that before your exams, because then you won't sleep. Picture your success. As Mary says, believe in yourself. You can do this. And get enough sleep. The way the exams are set, you can't do these all-nighters before, because if you do an all-nighter one night before one exam, the next exam is going to suffer. If you had lots of time before exams, weeks and weeks before them, maybe, but not the way these exams are set. So you need to get enough sleep. You need to build sleep into your plan as much as anything. And you're stronger than you feel. So if you are trying, you're coping, and you're coping well. If you're not coping and you find this is overwhelming, talk to somebody. People are there to help you. People want to help you. You're not in this alone. So look after yourself, take care. It's one part of your life. You want to put the best effort in you can at this moment in time. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And please believe, Mary and I and lots of other adults around you will tell you this, and they'll give you lots of examples of people who went on and done really, really well, who didn't do well in their exams. And I know that sounds, at this moment in time, you don't want to hear that, but it's really important that you do hear it, because it is only an exam, and that's all it is. It doesn't change who you are. So look after yourself, practice, and do the best that you can. And Mary, I wish you all the best, and hopefully things work out for you and you get something from these webinars that might help you do a bit better. Okay, so thank you very much for taking the time to listen to us, and hopefully you found something of some benefit from it.
Great. Thanks so much, Mary, for all of that. And I echo what Mary has said there. We absolutely believe in you. You can do it. Practice makes perfect. And it's only an exam at the end of the day. There will be, it'll be nice to have it finished and behind you. So that finishes our webinar series now for some tips and advice and tricks to help you get through your revision. As I said along the way, if you have any questions, do get in touch with us. We're more than happy to help. And good luck in your exams. Take care, everybody.
Take care. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.